Hi, Bobolito. Hi. 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 Oops. Say hi, Grandma. Grandma's here. Say hi, Grandma. Hi, Grandma. Yeah. Yeah, Grandma's here. Hi, everybody. Yeah. Can Mommy keep this on her shoulder, do you think? Okay. Alright. Yeah. How are you? How is everybody? Okay, we're making coffee so that we can read. Yes, yes, yes. Morning, I caught up Miss After yesterday, so called him for a chat. Oh, totally fair, totally fair. Although we can catch you up if you want. It was pretty straightforward yesterday, I'm not gonna lie. So if you want us to catch you up, we totally can. Recap of the year, probably not as wild. It was not as wild as the funeral. Let us know what you heard up to, and then with her working through the. I know she's so strong, right? Isn't that crazy? She was just lifting her head like crazy right before I put her in the wrap too. Yeah, morning, Maribel. How are you? Hi, beautiful girl. Oh, big yawn. Big yawn. Big yawn. Who's my best girl? Who's my best girl? In the whole wide world. In the whole wide world. It's you. Ooh, 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 ooh. It's you. It's you. It's you. Last thing I heard, the lawyer drop the bombshell about the will. Yeah. So the following segment that we read was kind of like partially her reading the letter from her mom, partially her reading the will over again on her own, and partially flashbacks. So it was like segments of the will and then segments of flashbacks of like things in their family. And it turns out her mom left her entire art collection. And we ended on a cliffhanger of why that matters, because it sounds like the art that her mom made was just trash, to my knowledge. So it's really confusing from my perspective at this point. At the end, she was like, Mark hadn't gotten it all. And it was like, huh? Because like the art was like string art that she put in their living room and like seashells made into shapes of turtles. It's like, okay. It's not like she had Morning Sloth. It's not like she had some like wild famous art collection. You know what I mean? It's like if she had had like a Van Gogh or something, I'd understand why that's interesting. But like, why do we care about her turtle art? You know what I mean? I love turtles, don't get me wrong, but like, it's not really worth anything. You know what I mean? So like, what are we talking about here? So that's kind of where I'm at. Yeah. Hang on. Yeah. I know. You want to talk more about that? Yeah, she didn't even, that's right. Avery's right. And a nativity scene made of taxidermied squirrels. Yes. Why? Like, truly, why? Like, who would do that, first of all? And that was part of the scene, was her in the flashback asking her mom why the heck she did that. I think it's because she got the red puppet and she can keep it from Mark. But didn't she try to throw the puppet away already? So she thinks it's gone. She thinks the puppet's in the trash. Doesn't she? Or am I, like, totally off my rocker? Which, these days. I thought she tried to throw it away. so tall. Becca, could you text me 8:38? Because I think we are asleep. But he would still take it as a loss, all the commentary and stuff. Yeah, that's true. You're right about that. Thank you, Becca. Stick it to Mark any way you can. Yeah, I mean, I agree with that. We're going to find out today. Look, here's the thing, Amanda, none of us know the answer. So you didn't miss the answer, you just missed the question. The question is, why do we care? And the answer is, who the heck knows? Who the heck knows? I also said, I mentioned yesterday, I don't know if everybody heard, but the next book that we wanted to read did come up available, so I have that for us when the time comes. Maybe also her mom highly values the art and left it to her. That's true. Emotionally, I could understand, but like monetary value, not so much. You know? Is anyone else always checking that their baby is breathing, even though you know that they technically are? Like, I always put my hand here to feel her little, torso moving, and then I always just stick my finger under her nose to feel the air, which I know is insane, but I do it anyway. Always. I can't, even though I know, like, especially when she has a cold, I'm like, if I don't hear you, why? Very common. Okay, that's good. You still do it, Becca? Yeah, it's weird, right? I'm like, okay, well, you're breathing. My youngest is almost 5 years old. Okay. All right, you guys are making me feel better. Hey, Cindy. Cindy, have you been catching up on the mirror? Secret Husband actually said that. He'd be like, what if we got one of those little mirrors that the dentists use, the little tiny one, and you stick it under their nose? I know, she's the longest ever. Cindy, I hope you're catching up on this book because this is totally in your, wheelhouse. Or a makeup mirror. I don't have one of those. Hormones trigger anxiety. It's true. It's so true. Poke them to see if they move. That's really funny. Yes, I'm slightly behind, but okay, good. I'm glad. Have you read Fourth Wing? I have read Fourth Wing. I've actually read that whole series now. I did catch up. Thoughts, concerns, just started and I'm loving Fourth Wing. So I think, if I'm being honest with you, Heather, I think the first book is the best of the series. I think, and Liz mentioned this, so I am not the originator of this thought for myself, but that's hilarious, Becca, but same. But I think that the other two books felt rushed, I guess. Like, oh my god, look at this little hand. Like, she was like really, because it got so popular, she was like in a hurry to write the other two, and that's how they feel. They don't feel quite as polished, I have not read anything by Cora Carmack. Does it count if I also check if my dogs are breathing? Yes, I think so. I think anything you love. I think it counts, anything you love. That's so sad to hear because the first was so well. Yeah, that's just, Heather, listen, not everybody feels that way, Heather, and not everyone thinks that way about it. So don't take my word as gospel or anything like that, because, like I said, there's a lot of people who love the whole series and do not think the way that I think about it. Fourth Wing was heavy on the romantasy and the other two are more fantasy. Yeah, I didn't even notice that. Really? Oh my gosh, we have two Heathers in here right now. I reread it and it was good. So I don't know. You felt that way with Iron Flame. We think Onyx Storm got better. I do think Onyx Storm got a little bit better, but people go real hard for those books and I'm not one of them, so don't take my opinion as gospel at all. Are we so sleepy?
Well, her mouth is moving, so she's alive. I've read her non-fantasy books. You know what? Oh, you've heard that. I want to read one of them. I have one of them on hold at the library. We are so comfy. Thank you. We are so comfy, huh? We are so comfy. Don't be sad, though. No sad face. Are you having a bad dream? She's asleep, but she just frowned. I'm not fond of every book ending on a cliff. Yes. Yes, that is one of the things that I mentioned as well. Oh my God, there's 2 Heathers in here right now. It's cracking me up. Very barely, Becca, very barely. I'm halfway through book 2 and I'm okay with the pace so far, trying not to be picky. That's nice of you, Amanda. I never try not to be picky anymore. I guess how I feel these days, like for the last, I want to say, year and a half, maybe a little bit more, I've felt like if I'm going to devote my time to reading something, I want it to be like real good, you know? By the by, speaking of which, who is reading the new Hunger Games that just came out? So far, real good. I'm really, I love that series. Everything she does. Suzanne Collins is in a league of her own, of course. Yeah, I also have reserved some of her contemporary books as well. Very funny, Becca. And I'm gonna read some too. Maybe we'll read one together here. Yeah, Christy, highly recommend that. Naisa, highly recommend it. Liz and I are both reading it already. I don't know if anyone else has started it besides Liz and I. Yeah, I would do one, Heather, totally. After we finish the books we have on list, I would do that. I'm reading The Natural Sister. Who's that one? New Hunger Games on my TV. I haven't gotten to it yet. It's so good. My cousin wrote an MVD thriller. Would you be interested in reading it for book club? Yeah, I mean, we'd definitely be open to checking it out. Why don't you email me all the info and we'll read the synopsis and we'll see if it fits, you know. We are a little bit squeamish, so like thriller, the question I would have for your cousin is like, how thriller are we talking? If it's too bloody and gory, we might tap out because we're nervous Nellies, but I love the LGBTQIA representation side of it, so that part I'm all in on. It's the thriller part that I'm a little hinky on. Just to be clear about my you know, my pullback is on the scary, not on the other. We've read a lot of things with LGBTQIA representation and that have been wonderful, but this is our first horror and we're doing okay, I have to say. Guys, I think we should all be really, oh, that's cool, Avery. That sounds like something I would enjoy because I did like that show. I think we should all be really proud of ourselves because we were worried that we weren't going to be able to make it through this book because we thought it would be too scary, but so far we're okay. I will also comment that I don't think it's been that scary yet because I'm easily frightened. Hello, Kels, but like we're doing okay, right? As a collective, I think we should be proud of ourselves. We are about not quite yet a third into the book, but close. I think we're okay. So let's get to reading and we'll see. We're at page 98, so we're almost 100 pages in, which is kind of cool. I did have my baby. She is 2 months old on Saturday, if you can believe that. She'll be 2 months old on Saturday. Yes, you will, won't you? Yeah, she will. Because I'm behind on Bailey. All right, see you later, Cindy. Baby out? Baby out? Yes. Big stretch. Okay. Chapter 10. Here we go. Make slime. Today is no slime making because today is restock, huh? Yeah, okay. As long as you agree. I know, right? They're so funny. The little noises. I forgot the now. Yes. Okay. Oh, she forgot the now. Yes. The slime is debatable. The slime is debatable. Here we go. Chapter 10. As the flat butt... That's all for today, folks. We've learned that Sasha doesn't know how to read anymore. Let's try that one more time. Yes. As the flatbed truck carrying the bright red ague-cluttered dumpster rolled into the driveway, Louise took a fake sip from her empty Starbucks cup. She'd been sitting on the porch as the sun rose, trying to think of a funny opening line to diffuse the situation so that Roland Agutter wouldn't get mad at her. A lot of people were about to get mad at her. The truck shuddered into silence, and Roland Agutter swung down from his cab and came across the dewy front yard. Louise stood up and took another pretend sip of her coffee. Feels like deja vu all over again, Roland said, stopping. If you open the front door in the garage, I'll just drop my dumpster in the driveway. Sunlight flashed off the windows of the busted Honda as it rolled to a stop at the edge of the yard and opened its doors. Hi, smiley, beautiful girl. Are you having a good dream now? I sure hope so. There's a good smile. Netflix series is... Oh, really? Oh, that's interesting, Roxy. Yeah, I want you to clean out the house, Louise said. I really do. As far as I'm concerned, you have this job, but before you start, I need to go through and take out my mom's artwork. Good morning, Isabella. We're just one page in. Well, sure, Roland said, nodding before she even finished. It'll take us at least a half an hour to get set up. I might need a little longer than that, Louise said. Or is there a lot of art? The house is kind of full of it, Louise said. Well, maybe you could just pick out one or two of your favorite pieces, Roland asked. Yeah, she laughs and smiles. I wish I could, Louise said, and she lifted the empty Starbucks cup again and sucked air to avoid meeting his eyes. She actually pretended to swallow this time. Oh, no worries, Isabella, don't ever worry. Am I gonna get in there at all today? Roland asked. Your brother called yesterday to make sure that I was coming. I'm really sorry, Louise said. Frustrated, Roland looked to the left at Louise, and then the right, and then the roof, and then back to her. It would really help me out considerably, he said, if you and your brother could iron out the wrinkles in your relationship before you call me again. I'm really sorry, Louise said. And morning sunlight bounced off Mark's truck as he whipped around the corner and stopped at the edge of the yard. He sat for a minute staring at Louise through the window so that she could see his mind working, trying to figure out what she was doing there, and then it clicked, and his face changed, and he came boiling out of his truck, steaming across the yard. She should have eaten breakfast. The coffee burned inside her stomach like acid. Don't listen to her, Mark shouted at Roland Agutter. She didn't know what she's talking about. This is my house and she don't control it. Agutter didn't even wait for Mark to reach them. He walked off toward his boys by the Honda to tell them that there was no work today. Mark stopped him halfway across the yard. Where are you going? Mark said, putting one hand on his shoulder, and Roland Agutter yanked his arm away. Every time, he said, suddenly furious, every single goddamn time money shows up and it tears the family apart. Mark stood and watched him go, and Louise wanted to tell him that this was not absolutely not what was happening here, that her family wasn't a clique fighting over an inheritance. It was just her brother who was causing all the problems, not her, and she'd been willing to split everything 50-50, but instead, she watched Roland Agutter talk to his boys and then swing himself back into the truck, crank the engine, and rumble away. The Honda followed. The truck engine dopplered to the end of the block and then went quiet as it took the corner and disappeared. Mark turned on her, full of rage. You selfish asshole, he said. I'm sorry Mom and Dad didn't do what you wanted for once, but they gave this house to me and not you, so you need to butt out. Louise had rehearsed this moment all morning. Stand your ground, she thought. Look him in the eye. Don't give him an inch. You might want to work on your reading comprehension, she said. Why don't you go over Mom's will with Brody again? The instant she said Brody, Mark started talking over her. He's my lawyer, he said, not yours. You can't talk to him. No, she said, happy to knock him off balance again. He's the estate's lawyer, not yours. Well, the estate belongs to me, Mark said. Turn to the schedule at the back, she said, pulling out her phone. She read from the email. Beneficiaries designations, page 8. Beneficiary name, Louise Joyner. Relationship, daughter. Bequeathed inheritance, art collection. Inheritance percentage, 100%. She gave it a second to sink in. All right, so what? Mark said. Do you understand what she meant by art collection? Louise asked. It means everything that Mom ever made. All her art, all her paintings, all her string art, all her picture frames, the squirrels, everything. Mark's shoulders unclenched and his body sagged. All right, big whoop, he said, trying to sound brave. You can have it. You're actually going to do me a favor. Thank you so kindly for your permission, which I don't need, Louise said. I'll try to hurry, but honestly, if it takes longer than a week, I'll have to go back to San Francisco and leave it unfinished, which means that you can't do anything to the house until I come back. There it is. There it is. That's the hitch. It's how much of it there was. Okay, we get it now. A woman in red fleece pushing a jogging stroller bounced by, and Louise felt trashy arguing in the front yard with her brother again, a remnant of the old neighborhood. They didn't fit in with these new yoga-ish people. The second you leave, Mark said, I'll get those guys back over here to clean it out. You could, Louise said, but I'm going to insist on walking through every room to make sure that I've got everything. And it might be a while before I can come back to do that. Mom has a lot of art, and I'm going to preserve every single piece of it, as per her final wishes. It's stated in the beneficiary designations of her will, which I'm sure you agree we should both respect. It might take me a year, but in the meantime, you can't sell the house. Fuck you, Mark said. I'm calling Brody. Be my guest, she told him. She knew that he'd have to hear it from someone who wasn't her. She watched Mark's back as he stormed off to the edge of the front yard, pressing his phone to one ear, and Louise worked in a tech-adjacent field, which made her hyper-aware of power dynamics. She waited around for Mark to finish his call, and he looked weak. She executed her alpha move and started to go towards the house. She went around back and reached through the broken pane of glass to let herself in the garage, and then she slapped the doorbell button that raised the garage door. It made a hideous shrieking sound as it rumbled up, letting in the daylight. Cold morning air flowed all around her, and Mark and Louise dolls stared dumbly at her from the shelf. She listened, trying to hear the TV, but all she heard was silence from the house. Next to the dolls, she saw a lampshade that her mom had painted with a starfish, and a set of mom-made clay bookends shaped like pink seahorses, and a white kitchen garage bag holding papier-mâché masks that her mom had made during her mask phase. Delightful. Without even looking hard, she'd spotted a stack of unframed canvases and realized that they were the oil portraits her mom had painted of the entire family that everyone had deemed too hideous to even hang inside the house. Mark's was the only one that didn't make him look like a prematurely aged gnome, baring its teeth and snarling. Louise looked back at the portraits and saw another white bag of Mom's needlepoint throw pillows and 5 card boxes labeled Christmas, which she knew would only be one stockpile of the handmade ornaments. Normally, a job like this would prompt Louise to start a list, but today she had to fight her urge to organize. Today, she'd be inefficient. Today, she felt grateful for the enormous amount of stuff filling every corner of their house. Step 1. Do a walkthrough and count the art. Don't touch it, just count it. She stood on the steps to the kitchen door and braced herself, and then walked inside for the first time since the day that she'd arrived. She walked past the hammer on the counter and made herself go into the living room. The easy chair sat empty. The TV was still off. She ignored the rows and rows of silent dolls and focused on the art, the crewel work tree of life that was over the sofa, the 9 frame cross stitches on the far wall, 4 flowers, 3 Charleston seams, 1 elephant balancing on its front legs, and 1 juggling clown. 3 more framed cross stitches were there beside the doll cabinet, and the yarn art of Mount Fuji was next to the bay window. The screen door squeaked, and a key crunched into the front door lock and swung open to reveal Mark, framed by the sun. They looked at each other, both of them back in the house they grew up in for the first time in years. "So did Brody agree?" Louise asked. Mark didn't answer, which meant yes, he did. "I don't like coming in here anyway," he said. "It's got bad vibes." He rammed his hand into his pockets and hunched his shoulders and then relaxed them. "Good," Louise said. "Good," Mark said. He started to turn like he was going to walk away, and then he stopped. "Hey, what's your point?" he asked. And the point was that he had crushed all of her oil pastels into her bedroom carpet. The point was that he'd kicked a hole in her parents' bedroom wall and hadn't made him pay for it to get it fixed. The point was that her mom had a whole lot of tough love for Louise and let Mark do whatever he wanted and never face any consequences. The point was that she was supposed to look after him and give him everything and never complain, but no one was looking after her. That was the point. So she furrowed her forehead. "I just want to respect Mom's wishes," she said. "You hated Mom." That took her by surprise. "I did not hate Mom," she said, her voice getting high-pitched with genuine irritation. How dare he say that? That wasn't even close to true. They had a complicated relationship, sure, but she didn't hate her. "You always made fun of her art," he said. "I never made fun of her art," she said. "I work in design because of her." "You glued googly eyes to the toilet and said it was her masterpiece. You even put a little museum placard next to it." "Okay, I was 13. "You know how she locked herself in her room and cried when you did that." "I've got a lot to do," she said. "I don't really have time for this." "Cool," he said. She watched him walk away and pull the camp chair out of the back of his truck to set it up in the front yard, and then he came back to the screen door. I'm just gonna be over here keeping an eye on things, he said, so you don't accidentally on purpose take something that doesn't belong to you. Okay, Mark, she said sweetly. She watched him drift across the yard and settle into his chair, and Louise figured if the new neighbors didn't think that they were trashy before, they sure did now. Mark began to play on his phone, and Louise turned to confront the house full of years and years of her mom's art. Louise wanted to blow through the rooms and strip them of the art and stack it in boxes and go downstairs and list important paperwork, grab all the family photos, but no, she needed to slow down. She needed to be inefficient. She needed to be not herself. She made herself count all the string art hanging over the dining room table, 3 masted Sooners on blonde wooden plaque, the owls, the mushrooms, the butterflies, the big wave, the sunset, the reverse silhouette of a cat, the yin-yang sign. Their strings were clotted with dust because her mom was an artist, not a housekeeper. She went into the living room and scanned the dolls lining the shelves and the back of the sofa and the top of the TV and the doll cabinet, and she decided that they were Mark's problem, not hers. And then her gaze landed on the top of the doll cabinet, and she wondered what she was going to do with the squirrel nativity. It had grossed her out when her mom made it, and the years hadn't been kind to it. Squirrel Mary and Squirrel Joseph had darkened with age. Their fur had come out in patches, and their once fluffy tails were now frayed and mangy. They prayed over Squirrel Baby Jesus with withered black paws held in the front of their hairless chests, and Squirrel Joseph's wrinkled lips had tightened over time, pulling back to reveal a slice of bright yellow teeth. Squirrel Baby Jesus had gone almost entirely bald, and his tail had become hairless as a rat's. All of them had lost their eyes, oh God, and her mom had stitched their hollow sockets shut. Mark had picked up on Louise's discomfort within the second he entered the house. He told her that he'd seen the squirrels turn their heads one night, and he said that they were waiting for her to go to sleep, and then they'd come crawling down the hall, worm past her lips, and claw their way down her throat. She told him to fuck off, but even today she could feel the sharp, bony claws digging down the soft tissue of her throat as they hauled their filthy bodies down toward her stomach. Ew. Louise couldn't be in the house for another second. She made herself grab it by the sides, the squirrel holy family wobbling so much that for a horrible second she thought that they'd snapped off and she would have to touch their bodies to pick them up. But she marched through the kitchen and out to the garage. The air felt fresh and cold out there, and it didn't smell like Yankee Candle and dust. She went to the garbage can and tipped open the lid and stopped. Okay, she's breathing. Pumpkin was gone. I know, right, Isabella? Hey, Mark said behind her, and Louise jumped. She turned and saw him staring through the open garage door. Pumpkin is in there. He escaped. He'll be so angry, she thought. She dropped the squirrel nativity into the can and slammed the lid shut. Hay is for horses, she said, a favorite saying of their mom's. I know what you're doing, he smiled. You think I'm going to freak out over how long this has taken and cut you in on the sale. She locked her face into the blankest expression and asked in an innocent voice, Oh, you're planning on selling the house? Home ownership is for suckers, he said. I'm happy as a renter. Aunt Honey is going to be very angry, Louise said. She thinks you should keep it and rent it out the way that Mom used to, or move in. Yeah, well, Mark said, it's my house now, and I don't really care for your opinion. Cool, she said. I'll try to get everything out of here as soon as I can then. Which she had no intention of doing. I can wait, he said. I can wait months. The market just keeps getting better and better. Mercy said the bubble's at its peak, she said, using whatever advantage she could find. You don't want to wait too long. Mom left everything to me, Louise. That won't change, no matter how much you drag your feet. Okay, she said, and she couldn't get her face to relax. Her fake smile felt like a snarl. You got a job, Mark said, and a kid, and you're going to go back to all that in, what, a week and a half? By March, this house will be on the market, and there's nothing you can do about it. He looked so smug. He thought he could predict everything she was going to do. Well, maybe I'll move here, she said. Maybe I'll bring Poppy. You want to wait me out? I can bring my daughter here. And with the cost of living what it is here, it's so cheap, I can waste years in Charleston going through this house. You're never going to sell this fucking place while I'm alive. Her chest felt flushed and her face felt hot. Mark looked elated. So if I split 50-50 with you, you'll pack up and stop pretending you care about Mom's art? That stopped her. A 50-50 split and this would be over. They'd reschedule a gutter for next week and it would end. She could go home and she could see Poppy and everything would go back to normal. Think of Poppy getting a $250,000 head start in life, Louise told herself. You'll never have to deal with Mark again. She opened her mouth to say something and Mark raised his eyebrows and Louise realized it was a trap. He wanted to see if she'd get greedy and then he'd yank the rug out from under her. He'd never share anything with her a day in his life. Oh no, she said, you can't put a price tag on love. She felt like she'd won. It was a small victory. It was a grubby victory, but it was her victory. Mark flipped her the bird and noticed something over her shoulder. Did you do that? He asked, and she followed his gaze to the back of the door and its pane of broken glass. You broke that window? I didn't have a key, she said. I'm charging you for that. He said, you can't come in here and be breaking my stuff. He stormed off to his truck, and Louise was left alone in the garage with her mom's art and the garbage can and pumpkin. He just slid down deeper into the trash, that's all. She could open the can and she would find him there if she wanted, but she didn't want. So then she thought about what else she might see in the trash can. His bag was torn open. It had torn on something. He hadn't ripped his way out of the bag. No, he was a puppet. He couldn't. Mark, of course. Mark had probably come by and gone to throw something out and seen Pumpkin and taken him to mess with Louise. He was going to hide him in her purse or someplace like that when she wasn't looking. Maybe she'd set him up by the TV again. Fine. She'd go even slower with the art. For once, Mark wasn't going to win. It would take more than a puppet to get her out of this house. I know. Yeesh. How long is this next chapter? Let's see. Do we think we can get through it? It's 8 pages. I think we can do it. Does Mommy think she can get to a sip of coffee? Oh, coffee. It's funny to be reading a book about a haunted house and have the baby making creaking sounds. She's being the creaking rocking chair for us. It's very kind of her. Oh, you're gonna stop the minute that I say that and make me have to. Oh, there you go. Creak, creak. It's kind of funny, right? Okay, here we go. Chapter 11. Louise stood in her bedroom doorway and looked at Buffalo Jones sitting on her bed with Red Rabbit, Hedgie Hedgehog, Dumbo, and all above him on their shelf. She realized they were the only things that she wanted from her own room. Yes, she provides the best. She is a paid actor, you guys. That's right. We are in a haunted house with dolls, so she could, she's a paid actor. Let's see if I can fix this. You don't want me to fix it? You don't want to let Mommy be comfortable? There you go. That's better. She gathered them up in her arms and headed out to the sunny front yard. Hey, Mark called from his camp chair. Where are you going? They're mine, Mark, Louise said, not stopping on the way to her Kia. No, he said. They're mine. They're for Poppy, she said. I'll see it right after, Becca. Did you pay for them, or did Mom and Dad pay for them? Mark asked, pushing himself up out of his chair and lumbering over to her. All you get is Mom's art and anything you paid for. If you don't have a receipt, then I'm afraid they belong to the estate, and the estate belongs to me. Louise's skin flushed hot. She turned and marched back into the house and dumped these onto the sofa, and got a 20 out of her purse and went back outside. She balled it up and threw it at Mark, and it bounced off his chest and landed on the grass. Is that enough? She asked. That's barely beer money, he said, smiling. I was thinking more like $100 apiece. You want $400? She asked. For my childhood stuffed animals? Yeah, I wouldn't pay it either, he said. I mean, good thing you didn't like them much anyways. You always kept them up there on that shelf. She bent over and picked up her 20. Mom's puppets are her art, she said. I'm taking those too. She didn't want them. She didn't want any of this. Why was she even fighting with Mark over this stuff? Well, because he can't keep winning at everything, she thought. Good, Mark said. Less shit I have to deal with. Anger made her brain buzz inside her skull. Why are you acting like this? She spat at Mark. Why are you? He shot back. Because I want things to be fair for one time, because you always win everything, she thought. Because of Mom's will, she said. I'm just respecting her wishes. Yeah, so am I, Mark said. And then the two of them stared at each other, breathing hard, and Louise couldn't think of anything to say that wasn't something he would boomerang back on her, so she turned and went back into the house. Nice talking to you, Mark called after her. She went and stood outside the door of her mom's workroom. More than anywhere in the house, this was the room that felt most like her mom's private space. And while she still wasn't ready to go inside, after saying what she said about the puppets, it felt like she had to at least look. Louise threw open the door. It only opened about 18 inches before it hit a soft wall of puppets. She squeezed her way through the crack, and puppets covered all 4 walls, dangling from suspended racks made of broomsticks, sitting on dowels at the tops of racks, puppets inside milk crates piled almost to the ceiling on her mom's work table. Where there weren't puppets, there were things that her mom used to make puppets. Stacks of aged, softened cardboard boxes piled high in the corners, holding both bolts of felt and puppet fleece, gasket rubber, fluorescent pink tulle, day-glow fishnet. Behind her mom's work table, where she cut patterns and trimmed fur, stood her sewing machine, and beside it, a metal cabinet of tiny drawers containing eyeballs, eyelashes, fake hair, buttons, feathers, sequins, and paste jewels. Somehow, the workroom contained more stuff than the rest of the whole house put together. Louise could barely breathe, it was so crammed full of puppets. 40 years of them stuffed into one tiny room, lining the walls, stacked to the ceiling. It felt too warm, too closed, too claustrophobic, and it stunk of polyester. This workroom was her mom's sanctuary, her safe space, where she devoted hundreds of hours of her life to making things that were all about to go into the trash. All right, let's get you guys counted, Louise said aloud, and layers of soft puppet lining the wall ate the echoes of her words, making them sound small. The room represented hundreds of hours of her mom's work, hundreds of hours of her life spent creating these things and pretending that they were alive. That's probably why her mom liked the Velveteen Rabbit so much. It's what she spent her life doing, bringing non-living objects to life. They're not real. They're just synthetic fabric and plastic. They're only things, Louise thought, and she scanned the puppets. Some she didn't recognize, but most, like Mr. Don't, Cosmic Starshine, Danny the Imagination Dragon, Pizza Face, Judge Goodsense, all of them she did recognize. To count them, she'd have to push her way into the mass of their dangling bodies and shove her way over to the far wall by the window. She got ready to step into the sea of puppet fleece and synthetic fur, and she couldn't. It just felt too sad. Could she really throw everything her mom had ever made away? But what else could she do with them? Overwhelmed, Louise pulled the door closed, and she figured them out later. There wasn't much art to count in the bedrooms, of course, so she decided to kill some time by putting her stuffed animals back on the shelf in her room. She'd find a way to get them out later. She walked into the sun-warmed living room and looked out the bay window. Mark still sat in his chair, guarding the house against her, hunched over his phone. She gathered up her stuffed animals and took them back to her bedroom, where she put them back on their shelf. She needed to slow down. There were only a couple of paintings in her mom's room and only 1 or 2 in Mark's bedroom, and that was it. So besides the puppets, anyway, when she checked her phone and it wasn't even noon, she decided to see if her mom had any paintings stashed in her closet. What's just Liz? I missed it. Is she loving this too much? Louise crossed the hall and stood outside her mom and dad's door, the only one in the house that they always had to knock on before entering. Before she could chicken out, she grabbed the knob and turned it. It made a sound that Louise had heard all her life, a hollow metal rattle with a brief bell note at the end. Oh, buffering. Oh, okay, never mind. She pushed it open. She hesitated on the threshold. It was the first time that she'd gone inside their room since they died. Cold, early afternoon sunlight came through the windows, and her mom's oak veneer vanity sat next to the door. A thin layer of dust settled over the perfume bottles and her mom's tortoiseshell comb and brush. The bed was made. A few of her mom's chunky, brightly colored oils of fruit hung on the wall. I see. The bedroom... Yeah. You're very creaky this morning. Yes. A single dark sock, her dad's, lay across the foot of the bed. The room looked as final and empty as Louise had dreaded. When they were little and really sick, her mom allowed them to sleep in her bed because it was bigger. Louise remembered the sick days with the black and white TV on the vanity, tucked in, eating Campbell's chicken noodle soup off of a tray, and drinking flat ginger ale. She wanted to be taken care of so badly. How had she and Mark come to this? Fighting in the yard over nothing and hating each other, arguing over a will? Louise pushed off her shoes and laid down on their bed, curling up in the middle of it. the faint smell of her dad's Old Spice and her mom's powder puffed out of the pillows. She hadn't expected this to be so hard. She looked at the still lice of fruit on the wall, burning with color and thick with oils. She remembered her mom struggling over them. Painting the natural world had not come easily to her. All her life, Nancy had wanted Louise to take her art seriously, but Louise refused. She'd made fun of it. She'd ignored it. She'd even, according to Mark, made her cry over it. And now, she and Mark had made it a battleground for all their old resentments, and in the end, like everything in her parents' house, she had spent years everything in this house that her parents had spent years accumulating and saving for and buying and creating, this would all end up in the trash. It would be sold to strangers at Goodwill. Everything would float away, including her and Mark, because after this, how could they ever talk to each other again? And nothing would be left. "I'm sorry," Louise whispered to the room, still smelling the ghosts of her mom's powder and her dad's aftershave. "I'm so sorry." She'd failed as a mother, and now she'd failed as a daughter. Her parents were ashes in a hole in the ground, and her brother had taken the house from her, and she was about to throw everything that her mom had ever made in the trash. She felt so drained. She fell asleep. Louise opened her eyes, and the room had gotten brighter, which meant it was afternoon by now, and her mouth felt gummy. Some sound had dragged her out of her sleep, but she didn't listen to hear anything. She looked out the open door into the empty hall, but she didn't see anything. The bed felt so soft, and the air felt so cool, but she felt warm and safe, tucked up into herself. Her hands fell between her thighs to feel warm against the neck pillow, and she didn't want to move. She let her eyelids slowly lower, staring down her body at her dad's dark sock at the end of the bed. And then it moved. In a heartbeat, Louise woke up. It wasn't because of her dad's sock. It was a small, furry black head coming up over the edge of the bed, pointed like a rodent, like a mouse, no, like a rat, like a squirrel. A dark gray squirrel scurried 2 more steps onto the comforter and raised its nose to sniff the air. There must be squirrels in the attic. That's why they had boarded up the hatch. And it must have come down through the vent in the hall and come over here looking for food. Were squirrels rabid? It looked mangy, and the top of its head was missing a patch of fur. Its ears looked chewed. One side of its leathery lips had pulled back so she could see a slice of yellow teeth, and its eyes were stitched shut. She knew it was from the squirrel nativity. Louise's guts turned to ice. A tiny whimper escaped her lips, and the squirrel twitched its head in her direction, and Louise realized that it was listening to her, and it took another slow and cautious and creeping step forward. It wanted to find her mouth and worm its long, mangy body down her throat and wriggle into her guts. Quietly, she braced herself, careful not to rock the mattress. She tensed the muscles in her left leg to kick the squirrel. She kicked it, and then she dropped the blanket over it to get outside. The dead squirrel cocked its head to one side, listening, and Louise bunched the muscles in her thigh up, and suddenly a soft pillow around her throat twitched, and it moved, and the squirrel curled around her neck and darted into the collar of her shirt and scurried down the front of her chest. What? What? Louise screamed and leapt out of bed, not caring about the squirrel at the foot of it anymore, needing to get this thing out from under her clothes. It clawed at her body, at her breasts, at her belly, at her sides, scurrying around her back, trapped beneath her shirt. She slapped at herself, dancing from foot to foot and screaming, "Ah, ah, ah," over and over and over again, desperate to get it out. Its dry, sharp paws pinched at her belly, realizing that it was going down, following her shirt tucked into her jeans. And if it kept going down, it would come out below her waistband. She panicked, not wanting it to get into her pants. It felt dry against her skin, light and sharp, like some kind of hollow-bodied crustacean, like a crab darting out beneath her clothes. Louise felt its claws pinch at her soft stomach again, its small triangular head poking out beneath her waistband like a wedge, and she slapped one hand down over her gut, trapping it against her, pressing it into her body hard, and something sharper than she could imagine cut deep into her belly, and she kept pressing, not letting up no matter how deep it sunk its teeth in. "Well, you think it's not hurting me? I'm the one who has to read it." It thrashed and writhed and tried to get down into her pants, and she stuck her left hand into the buttons of her shirt, popping 2 of them open, and she yanked the shirt out of her waistband of her jeans and gripped the hard, bony thing and tore it out and hurled it away. It was lighter than she thought, and it flew across the room and hit the far wall with a weighted tap. shut, and it flew across the room and hit the far wall with a weighted tap. Louise turned to run and stopped so fast she overbalanced and fell backwards onto her butt. Yeah. This is a line I never thought I would read in my life. Are you ready for this? I never thought that this line would come out of my mouth. Squirrel baby Jesus crouched in the doorway. I know. That's how I feel about it too. Me either, Sloth. Me either. Its bald tail was twitching, and then its mummified tail broke off mid-twitch, dropping weightlessly to the carpet. Its stump flickered back and forth as the blind squirrel cocked its head listening for her. As silently as she could, Louise rose to her feet and took one long step to the right towards the bathroom door. The squirrel baby Jesus raised up on its haunches, sensing the air for vibration. Alive is a relative term, Jen. I don't think we can use the term alive right now. I think we can use the term moving, but like, how could they possibly be alive? Yeah, that's how I feel too. On the other side of the room, Squirrel Mary, that she'd thrown against the wall, turned itself over, and one of its front legs hung at a 90-degree angle. The squirrel Joseph still crouched on the comforter, and like the one in the door, it raised itself up on its haunches, listening. Oh, did I move the face? Louise froze. The bathroom door was too far away. She needed at least 3 big steps to get there, and they were faster than her. But it was her only chance, and she took another slow, silent step. Underneath the carpet, the floor creaked. The squirrel on the comforter swung its head in her direction, and Louise held her breath. The squirrel baby Jesus lowered itself onto all fours and took a slow step in Louise's direction. That's fair, Becca. She tried to ease her foot off the carpet as slowly as possible. The squirrel on the comforter lowered itself onto all fours and scrambled down to the floor head first. Louise finally got her foot off the floor, and it creaked again. The squirrel Joseph was halfway down the comforter and froze. Its tail gave a single convulsive twitch, and then it came for her, and Louise saw the badminton rackets leaning against the wall, and she heard Squirrel Joseph's claws racing over the carpet almost on her, and she scooped up a racket, flipped it so that it faced the ground, and slammed it down, trapping the squirrel between its strings and the carpet. It twitched, stronger than she had imagined, wrapping its tiny mummified claws around the string, and Louise raised the racket at the squirrel, and he came up with it, and then she slammed it in the carpet again and stepped on it, and something crunched. The squirrel let go, and Louise flipped the racket and brought the edge of its wooden rim down on the squirrel, chopping it in half. She felt, rather than saw, the other two burst into motion, streaking over the carpet, and Louise dove into the dark bathroom and slammed the door. She heard their dry bodies rattle against the wood on the other side, scrabbling at it with their claws, and she pushed the thumb lock just as she felt one of them scurry across the knob on the outside of the door. The shadows on the floor from the crack under the door, The shadows on the floor from the crack under the door moved, and she looked down just in time to see a squirrel pushing its long, pointed head through the crack, and without thinking, Louise picked up her bare foot and brought her heel down on its dry skull. I mean, I'm just glad she has no idea what I'm saying, Sloth. That would be terrible. She felt it snap like a nutshell through the sole of her foot. It jerked and spasmed for an instant, trying to pull its crushed skull out from under her heel, and then it went still. She yanked her foot away and looked at the front half of the squirrel's dry, empty husk, and caved in, and then turned and leaned over the sink and opened her mouth to throw up. Her stomach convulsed, but only sour air and a long, retching belch bubbled up. White stars twinkled in her vision, and she stayed like that for a long time, her stomach cramping over in on herself. Finally, She sat down on the toilet and tried to slow her breathing, and when she felt like she could move without going lightheaded, she turned on the lights, and that's when she noticed the squirrel under the door was gone. Carefully, racket in one hand, she cracked open the door, heart cramping inside her chest, and the door revealed an empty carpet, and then more empty carpet, and then she had it all the way open, and the squirrels were gone. Louise had to know, still clutching the racket. She moved to the door and looked down the hall. A mechanical scream ripped through the house, and Louise jumped when she realized it was Mark cutting wood with a power saw, and she followed the sound out to the garage. Mark was outside the open back door, chopping a piece of plywood into a patch for the broken glass with a circular saw. Louise stepped over the extension cord and walked to the garbage can. He heard her open the lid. "You know," he said, "you can mess with Mom's art all you want, but you're going to have to pay for that window that you broke." Louise ignored him. Inside the garbage can lay the squirrel nativity. Squirrel Mary and Joseph stood in their prayerful positions like they always did, bent over the red squirrel baby Jesus. But Squirrel Mary's dry skull had just been crushed, and Squirrel Joseph had a gash in the side, revealing its hollow leather interior, and a few specks of greasy sawdust clung to its fur. "And that badminton racket doesn't belong to you either," Mark said behind her. They'd gotten damaged when she threw the nativity in the garbage. Those had been real squirrels from the attic in her mom's bedroom. She had just been mistaken. She hadn't killed them. Squirrels move fast. She had only maybe stunned them. "You threw them in the garbage," she thought. "You made them angry. You made Pumpkin angry too. Where is Pumpkin?" "You know, I had this all planned out with the gutter guys," Mark carried on behind her. "They were going to deal with all this shit because they weren't emotionally attached to it, and then you fucked it all up. What are you even going to do with Mom's art anyway? You're probably just going to take it to the dump and put it in the trash." Louise couldn't do this. She couldn't deal with Mark right now, with this house, with the squirrel nativity, and with Pumpkin. She turned around. "You win," she said. "Call Mercy. Sell the house. I'm done." I would be too. I'm not gonna lie, you guys. I would be too. I would be capital DONE, 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 done. I wouldn't care. There's no amount of money. Wild, you guys. Just wild. Yeah, I would have just left with not even talking to him. I agree with Sloth and Becca also. I would have just walked out and never returned to the entire town. I would have been like, "See you never." That would be where the book ends if we were the leads in it. That's right. We would be like, "And scene. Thank you. Enjoy the house. I hope you love it. There's a new book where you're the lead. Goodbye." Yeah. You're kind of like, about it. Yeah. 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 Okay, so restock is today. Hey, Julia. Restock is today, so I will be back. You're sad? Why are you sad? About the book? Or about something else? Me too, Anya. Me too. About a slime? Why is slime making you sad? What happened? Don't be sad. It's just slime. It's just glue and borax. Everything can pretty much be fixed. What happened? I just got a daily reminder that I have a parcel pending. Okay. Thank you, building. I will check the mail after this. Yeah. Are you having a bad dream? What's it about? Unless you had it. Someone got my Frankenslime? What do you mean someone got your Frankenslime? What does that mean? I don't know what that means. Someone stole it? I don't know you about a Frankenslime. I'm not sure what you mean, Roxy. I'm sorry, I'm confused. A package was delivered wrong? Roxy, I think you have more than one package coming, so I wouldn't worry about that. Hi, baby girl. No sad, no sad. Yeah, okay, Julia, that's no problem. I saw someone else have it. Roxy, if you're worried because you think that someone's Frankenslime looks like yours, don't forget that I often make identical Frankenslimes when we're having Roll for Slime, right? Sometimes I sit two jars next to each other and I put the same slime split into two. So a lot of them look really similar, so I wouldn't worry about that. I mean, I have at least sometimes 2 or 3 that look almost exactly the same. No, it's not worse. It was just bugging me. Like, skin was catching and it was driving me nuts. So I didn't want, it was like catching on her clothes and stuff, and I just couldn't deal with it anymore. It doesn't hurt or anything, it's just annoying. I just wrapped it in this because it keeps, you know, catching. I hate when Band-Aids catch on stuff, it drives me nuts. Yeah, Roxy, I wouldn't worry. There's always more Frankenslimes and there's always more slimes, so don't even stress about that. But I'm gonna go finish getting everything ready for the restock. Restock is at 5 p.m. Pacific time tonight, and it's good stuff. I don't even know what I did, Avery. It's like a weird, like, non-cut. You know what I mean? Like there was like, it's not a cut because it's not bleeding or anything, and it's not even a paper cut, but it's just like, there's a little bit of skin that keeps catching on her clothes and stuff, so I just bandaged it up. So yes, we're gonna go get ready. Everything is almost done. Oh no, I'm sorry to hear that, Joss. Everything is almost done and ready for tonight, and I hope you all have a great rest of your day until then. See you later.